Do you think a trade for Aaron Donald will happen? What a question from CM Punk here, and I'm going to be answering it here in just a second. But first here, let's get to some other questions, starting with hot takes, where he goes, #Steelers. Could we trade a first and a player for Aaron Donald? So these Aaron Donald questions just keep coming on the Steelers Talk mailbag. I think it depends on the player. I think it depends where the Steelers are potentially going to be drafting. But, if the Steelers are in position to potentially make a Super Bowl run by the trade deadline this year, and a deal presents itself that isn't atrocious, right? It isn't like 2 first-rounders and a player or something like that. I'm at least taking the call from the Los Angeles Rams to see what it would take to get Aaron Donald. Because if you can join forces between Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and arguably the best defensive player to ever do it in Aaron Donald, oh my goodness, man, this defensive line would be unstoppable. That's 4 guys that you arguably have to double team, and you can only pick one. That is absolutely unstoppable, man. So if the opportunity presents itself and it's not too much of a mortgaging of the future, I'm going to take that trade all day long. Then we got a question from Matt Hyde here. It says, here we go, Steelers. Do you think Steelers make the playoffs? I'm going to say yes to this question. Now, the big thing that could derail this season, it's 2 things, actually. Kenny Pickett, if he's not a good quarterback, he could derail the season. And then also Matt Canada. If the offense sucks this year in general, that could derail the season. The AFC North this year is going to be an absolute bloodbath with the Cincinnati Bengals, Deshaun Watson coming back here with the Cleveland Browns. They could certainly be pretty decent. And then you got the Baltimore Ravens, revamped offense there with Lamar Jackson, Odell Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers. There's going to be a lot of really good teams in this division this year, and you got to have a complete football team to be division champs and make the playoffs this year. And if Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada just aren't that, then the Steelers are going to have a disappointing season this year. Then we got a $10 super chat from Just Webb's World 1 that says, what rookie would you expect to bust? Hopefully none, but it's either Washington, and it would hurt me, but him or Herbig. So I think that if I have to pick one right now, and by the way, I think this is going to be one of the best draft classes in Steelers history. So this isn't a prediction. I think the one that's most likely to bust is Darnell Washington, given the knee injury that scared so many teams off of him at the NFL Combine, right? Given his size, just the fact that he's so freaky, right? Sometimes those freak athlete types, they have very freak type injuries, and it derails their seasons derails their careers. So that's definitely a possibility for a guy like Darnell Washington. But also, you look at the upside. If you can combine Darnell Washington and a realized Darnell Washington next to Pat Freiermuth, that is an absolute game-wrecking combination at the tight end position. So although I'm really excited about Washington, the bust factor is definitely involved in that equation. Then we got a question from Nothing here who says, should the Steelers pay Najee Harris? Now, I think it depends on how he plays this season. Okay, so if he has a really great season this year and he's like at top 5 in rushing touchdowns, all these different things, and he leads this Steelers offense to the playoffs, then I say, yeah, sure, give him his money, pay the man his money. But he needs to prove it. He hasn't proven it to this point in his career. Now, he's dealt with injuries. He's dealt with poor offensive line play. So the excuses are there. But this year, the excuses are definitely less, and it's definitely going to be a big year for his career. I'm definitely excited to see what Najee is going to be able to do this year. I think it's going to be a good year, and I do think he'll be a Pittsburgh Steeler for a while. Then we got a question from Dan, the Pitt fan here. He says, Dan Moore doesn't truly have a shot at left tackle, right? Now, I actually think that he does. Okay, so Dan Moore Jr. right now, in comparison to first-round rookie Broderick Jones, Dan Moore is plain simply the better pass protector right now. Jones still has a lot of flaws in his pass protection skill set, and although I think Jones is the better run blocker at this point, I'm looking at the complete totality of the player, and if Broderick Jones isn't ready to play, there's no reason to rush him, okay? There's no reason to rush him into the lineup. You have a very solid guy there that's been in this league for a while in Dan Moore Jr., so you can wait until Broderick is ready to play. Now, I think Broderick eventually has the skill set to be a top 5 left tackle in the National Football League. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, however, and it could mean that Dan Moore Jr. is going to be the starting left tackle for this team by week 1. So I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down there in the comments section. Does Dan Moore have any shot to start at left tackle over Broderick Jones? Give me a yes or give me a no down there in the comments. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. Take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Then we got a $20 super chat from Gold Club member Brian Love here, and he says, if the Steelers do make another move, it should be to beef up the linebacker room. Chase Young is not worth a trade, especially with how questionable his health has been as of late. And once again, I completely agree with Brian Love here. I think that the linebacker room, if you're going to make an addition, a big-time move here before the start of the season, it's probably got to be in the linebacker room, right? Whether that be a free agency signing, I think that's probably less likely, right? Or a trade for a guy like maybe Isaiah Simmons or Patrick Queen if the Ravens are stupid enough to give us Patrick Queen. I don't think a move is going to end up happening. I think that Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, and the Steelers are pretty content with what they have on the roster right now. But I completely agree with Brian here. If you're going to address one position, it's probably going to be inside linebacker. Then we got a $5 super chat from Damian Roy here. And he says, I work at FedEx, talking about FedEx Field, where the Commanders play. I saw the injury and his return, talking about Chase Young. He looked slow and tentative. Now, that's absolutely what was the case last year for Chase Young. Just 5 tackles, no sacks for Chase Young when he came back from his ACL injury at the end of the 2022 season. He's coming into this year. Apparently, he's feeling really, really good about himself. The Commanders are feeling really good about Chase Young. So I guess we'll have to see how he performs this year. But that doesn't change my feelings that the Pittsburgh Steelers absolutely do not need to make a Chase Young trade at this point. Then we got a $5 super chat from Gary Reynolds here. It says, what inside linebacker can we go after in a trade or free agency? So I think that if there's one guy that I would want to go get right now, it would be Patrick Queen. The only problem is the Ravens are a division rival, and there's no way they're going to trade him to us. There's some other guys in there as well. You know, like Devin White is somebody that's been thrown around, Isaiah Simmons, but I don't think that those guys are real, good options for the Steelers at this point. Super expensive as well. So I think that probably your best bet is to go to free agency. And if you're looking for a coverage linebacker, the answer to that question is Kawan Alexander. Then we got a $10 super chat from Gold Club member Austin Tardif here, who says, personally, I think we aim for linebacker with our second pick next year in the draft. Saying that, what linebackers should be keeping our eyes on? Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I haven't done my homework on the inside linebacker prospects in next year's NFL draft now, but Jeremiah Trotter Jr. from Clemson, he is absolutely fantastic. He's probably going to be a first-round pick next year. So, I mean, on day 2, he's probably not going to be available for the Steelers, but that's definitely somebody to keep your eye on if you need one name there. That's going to be it for today's mailbag. Well, we got more questions coming up here in just a second. Thank you so much for your support. Make sure you click that subscribe button right now if you want more Steelers mailbags coming up in the future. Then we got a $10 super chat from Brian Love, who says the AFC North belongs to the Steelers. That's right, Brian. Half of the Browns wide receivers room is already hurt. The Ravens are also looking thin in the wide receiver room. OBJ coming off injury and already talking retirement. Playoff bound, baby. I agree with Brian's take here once again, man. I think the Steelers are going to have a really good campaign here. I do think the AFC North is going to be a little bit more competitive. Just because the Browns have a couple injured receivers, and same thing with the Ravens. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be good football teams. I think they have good defenses as well, good head coaches. I think it's going to be a bloodbath this year, and although the Steelers, I think, are equipped to handle that battle, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out. Then we got a $20 super chat from my man Mo Love here, and says, hey, what's good? Eloped to Costa Rica to get married and visit in-laws, so been busy the past few weeks. Congratulations, Mo Love, on getting married, my man. That is awesome to hear. Really happy for you. Congrats to you and your new wife. And says, how will the Steelers start slow again this year? Or will this be better? I think it's going to be better this year. I am holding out hope that Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett improved during the offseason. This defense is going to be a top 3 unit in the league Head coach Mike Tomlin's one of the best in the business, and I think the black and gold are going to make their return this year. Now, that being said, it's certainly possible that Matt Canada's offense is super bland and boring again, and Kenny Pickett just isn't that guy. If that happens, the Steelers are likely last in the AFC North this year, but I'm holding out hope here that both of those things are going to work out for us this year, and that the Steelers are going to be AFC North champions in 2023. Then we got a question from Dab Udi. Nice. And then he says, Calvin Austin, sleeper fantasy player. You heard it here first. I don't disagree with that one whatsoever. I think that Calvin Austin III is somebody that could maybe merge onto the scene later in the season. I wouldn't draft him, though. I would not draft him. Here is why. He's not going to play a whole ton at the beginning. I think mostly in the beginning, it's going to be 11 personnel, which means 3 wide receivers, and those 3 receivers on the field are going to be Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and Allen Robinson. Okay, so I think that Calvin will get on the field for various situations, obvious passing situations and the like, but he's just not valuable as a run blocker, so he won't be on the field during those early downs. But now let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. What Steelers players would you draft in fantasy football? For me personally, I'm definitely picking up George Pickens, who I think is going to have a breakout season here in his second year in the league. But let me know which Steelers players you're drafting in fantasy football this year. Then we got more questions here. This one from Urza1 Alpha, who says, do you think we will be able to pay all of our defense next season? If not, who might be a good trade candidate to cut cap if we end out of the playoffs before the trade deadline? So this is definitely an interesting question. I would say Patrick Peterson, maybe, if the Steelers are bad, they have to get a new quarterback or something like that, and he wants out, maybe Patrick Peterson, but I really don't see them giving up Minka. I really don't see them giving up Cam. I really don't see them giving up TJ. And because they just signed Alex Highsmith, I don't see them giving him up either. So if you're going to pick one guy to kind of give up on defense, I think it's probably going to be Patrick Peterson, but I guess we'll just have to see on that one. That's going to be it for today's mailbag, guys. Really do appreciate all the support. If you want more Steelers content from me on Twitter, go ahead and give me a follow at Sperry_Yens. Really do appreciate all the support. I will see you guys later. And as always, here we go, Steelers.